Hey everyone, welcome back, and I'm delighted to be introducing Anthony Bari, who is a filmmaker, documentary maker, post-production expert. Do you grind the lenses as well and create
Sometimes,
those?
yeah.
Sometimes. So Tony's got some fantastic techniques to help make your footage pop and to make it entertaining or just jump out at the audience.
Add some flair.
And I love your title here, Promotional Videos with a Flair. And also, you may know that we do simulation tools across the Maxon range, but we also make simulation tools in the Red Giant range too. So this is what Tony's going to be talking about. So
Absolutely.
Over to you, Tony.
Thank you. All right. So, first of all, hello, Canada. Hello, world. Hello, Siggraph. Hello, Ellie. Yay. All right. So, we're going to talk today. This is a 1.5 version of yesterday, so we'll go through a couple of things. The lens flare simulation, which is a pretty amazing tool, and we'll talk about how you can get these natural looking lens flares, and you can even use them to relight your shots. So my little animated slide here. So we're going to talk about lens flares, but this is not necessarily for just live action video. This is also can be used in different ways because the main host is Adobe After Effects, and you have the gateway through After Effects to Adobe Premiere. So just keep that in mind. I might be showcasing flat video, but it's not necessarily flat when you're working on it. So as soon as it goes into After Effects or Adobe Premiere, you can apply these lens flares to give a little bit of dynamic to your footage, whatever your footage may be. And then we'll talk a little bit about overlight, and that is available inside of Adobe Premiere, Adobe After Effects, and DaVinci Resolve. So I'll show a couple of real examples, and then I'll show how you can actually accentuate, all right? You can accentuate what's already existing in your footage. This is a procedural lens flare simulator, okay? So it's not just based on sprites. It's not just a bunch of little pixels sitting there on the screen. This is actually a simulated lens flare based on the actual breakdown of a lens, and you'll see the actual breakdown of a lens inside of the plugin itself. It's pretty amazing. So we're going to create some beautiful controllable flares, which is something that makes anybody on the finishing end of a film, of a show, of a project, the colorist, makes them really happy because they don't have to kind of tweak little things around a big giant flare. So you can just add it in later on. So some other uses for this, you can use it to relight your scene, mock up the sun, create some light leaks and some glows, and then you can even just kind of add the little tail bit and pretend that you shot in IMAX, even though you shot with a $1,000 camera versus something that costs, way more than $1,000. So besides that, you can actually use it as a way to create depth in your scene. So it's kind of like a measuring tape. You can have this lens flare kind of come out from the window and just kind of drag across your frame, and then you're going to see a little bit of depth in your frame. And then also, if you know your lens, you know your sensor, you know your camera that everything was shot with, or the mock-up of what things were supposed to be, you can actually, build to your specific build of your lens mathematically if you really want to dial in. So anybody that loves math and loves science and just wants to break down a lens and even down to the coding, and I'll show you. So it gets pretty technical, but you can also keep things on the surface. And I'm going to break down the anatomy of what this effect can do. It's pretty large and amazing. So you can shape your flares. You can add, you can adjust each element of your flare separately, and even just showcase one at a time if you'd like. And the good part about it is a lot of the elements are keyframeable, they're trackable, you can dream, you can customize, you can mimic a camera used already, and again, like I said, you can adjust your sensor size so it seems a little bit more like the footage it was shot on. Or you can dream and pretend, you might have shot it with something like your phone, and then add something that looks like it came from an Arri Alexa 65. So let's see some actual examples here, okay? This is not an example, that's just my motion slide here. So this right here is, I like to shoot straight into the sun, especially if I have any cinema lenses. So if I know that I can point my camera right in the sun and get a nice flare, I'll try it, I'll do it. Most of the time, you know, the rule of thumb is if you're shooting for yourself, you can do all this. When you start shooting with the client, they want you to do if this is just the bonus material. So not everybody loves flares the way that I might love flares or the way that you might love flares. So keep that in mind. So this right here is what happens when you have a smudge or something on your lens. You get what's called the stick. And I'll show you that, and we can emulate this. But this is actual footage that I shot, and that's just that little streak of light right here is known as the stick. And then you'll see another one here. Like I said, I just kind of like to shoot straight into the sun. And you can see kind of the faint, you know, the greens and the blues from the tail end of that flare. And you know, the good part about it is, like it's natural, it blends right in. This was shot with raw, in-camera raw. So I like to pull that out, and I usually like to dip it down so I can like accentuate the flare. But in this case, this is all baked into a ProRes, so it's kind of sitting exactly where it needs to be at this moment. So let's just hop in here and I'll show you how to apply this effect. So first, this is a shot. This is basically shot like just before, just right after sunset. So all that beautiful glow and everything is kind of, you can see just a little bit of it on his cheek, but it's kind of gone by now, and it's really hard to kind of get around and shoot a little bit of this and a little bit of that before the sun goes down, because the best moments are literally just before the sun comes down. So I was able to warm that shot up, and I'll show you that in just a moment, but you can warm that shot up and mimic the sun and give you this nice warm glow. And then even shot to shot, when you go in closer, now you get something a little bit warmer. So you can apply the lens flare just to kind of add, it's called what's called a glow ball. So let me go ahead and let's just go to this After Effects project, and I'll go to Edit Original. And inside of here, there's a few things to know. And actually, let me just quickly organize this. I'll drag this and put it here, and I'll drag that third flare, and I will put it right there. Okay, so to apply the real lens effect, all right, let's just look it up right here. And it's in the VFX, the Red Giant VFX suite, okay? And then when you apply it, let me just show you. And before I even get to this is like warming up my scene. But let's just talk about the basic setup so I can show you what it actually looks like. So I'll make a solid, or you can actually just do an adjustment layer, but I'm just gonna call this black solid 4 flare, okay? Make sure it's comp size, make sure it's absolute black, drag it all the way down, okay? So we're gonna use this in screen mode. Is basically the idea is that we want to take that and kind of let it sit on a transparent layer. All right, so you can do it like that. Yes, you can apply it through the adjustment layer as well if you'd like. And yes, you can apply it right on your footage. It's not optimized to be just thrown right on your footage, so you might not get the exact results you want. The best way to do it, from what I know, is to apply it to a black solid. So for right now, I'll apply this to a black solid, real lens, flares, throw that on top of that black solid, and here is our default. Okay, so with this default, you have a couple things. You have the halos, you have this starburst, and you have what's called a glow ball, and this is your reflection. So you can actually break this whole thing down, and you can use only the parts that you want. So let me just show you. There is the designer, and then you have some of your features are right inside of this panel right here when you go to your effect controls, right? The key ones are in here, okay? Like the light source and the size of that light. So I can kind of bring that up, and that's like emulating the sun, all right? And then I can adjust this brightness here, and I can kind of pump this up. You'll see it does get a little heavy, so there is different modes, by the way. You can change it from fast. When I'm working in it, fast would probably be ideal. If you wanted to, you can switch it to production, all right, or best. I would not go extreme or best until you're absolutely ready to render. Just go to fast, I'm gonna work in fast for right now, and it's still not too bad, but you'll see that if you actually wanna see the best possible view of it for working, I'll try to work in production. So just keep in mind, if you do have a computer that's a little bit older and it seems to lag a little bit, you can switch your quality over right here, not just inside of your composition window here. So let's open up the designer, and here's where things get fun. So just like all the other Red Giant products, you have all these lovely presets, and you can kind of shop through a menu of presets. But just to break this actual effect down so you can build one from scratch by yourself, you can see here there are different elements to this effect. So right here is my reflections. This is the spike. Sorry, I was calling it stick earlier. So single spike, right? So that's the spike. That's like if you had like a smudge on your lens, right? This right here is the halo. And if you crank it up and you crank up, you know, you'll start to see kind of different colorization and all kinds of interesting things. And it just kind of gives you a little bit of texture to the actual glow ball. So I'll show you that, and I'll isolate each piece of this effect so you can see how it works. So the glow ball, this is kind of like, I would say this is the core of it. You know, the glow ball or the starburst. And the starburst is controlled by a couple of different things. So if I go here, you can change the amount of blades. So let's just go here, and I'm gonna turn some things off. You can also delete them and just go to one thing at a time. So let's just pay attention to just the starburst. I'm gonna bring this right to the center here, and then you're gonna see, when I click on the starburst, you'll see it's controlled by my aperture, just like if you stop down your lens. And then you can adjust the amount of blades, right? So you can even use this, honestly, you can make a very interesting like gobo or looping background out of this if you wanted to. There's an evolution or the angle, right? You can keyframe this angle and just go at the start of your timeline, hit the stopwatch at 0 and go to the end of your timeline and say however many iterations, and then you create this perfect loop. So if you wanted to spin this around, you could spin that around and kind of make just an interesting like looping gobo if you wanted to. Like I said, there's so many uses for this that's not just a flare on your screen. So if you did want to make kind of a mock-up of a gobo, you can do so and just go to the tail end and just say like, you know, angle times 10. And then it's a perfect loop because it's going to end up at 0 degrees. So that's one way. Again, I can bring this down. Let's bring this down to like 5. And now you can see you have a different look to your lens. You can adjust the curvature too. And when you do that, everything is so subtle. So, you know, if I bring this back, let's drag it back this way, and you can see there's kind of a split. So as I adjust that curvature, you'll see that all the spikes kind of get close to each other. So let me turn this one off. Let's go over here. And this right here is our glow ball. So inside of the glow ball, this is kind of like if I was mocking up the sun, I would be adjusting the glow ball. This is something that can be placed just off, you know, just off camera, and then you can kind of allow for the rays to kind of come into your shot, and you can even adjust the rays and adjust the angle of the rays. So if you were to adjust that, you can kind of make it dance, right? So you can just pick like I said, with the evolution, just start at 0 and then go all the way to the tail end, and however many iterations you make, that's how fast this will be. So if you just want a little bit of shimmer or something on somebody's skin in a close-up shot, add some texture, you can use this effect. And you can adjust the size of this glow ball here, right? And then you'll start to see, right? And of course, you know, I'm in production quality, but if I were to be in like best quality or extreme, you know, just understand your computer will be working a little bit harder. So if I put this just off screen, you'll see that I can use this kind of subtle texture, and it just puts this nice warm gradient on your subject, or just a nice warm wash. So if I were like shooting into the sun, majority of the landscape will be like have this nice warm wash, and that's how you can tell. It kind of like depending on the lens that you're shooting with. So, and it also kind of like breathes life into your image. It gives you like somewhat of a volumetric lighting situation. So, but that's the halo, right? And yes, you can actually adjust the color of this. So I can go here and I can make this more blue, right? you can kind of drag that down. So it doesn't have to be so synthetic blue. It can be just a little bit blue. All right. So that's the glow ball. Go straight from the glow ball. Here's the halo. So this right here, just to show you, this is like if you have any imperfections or if there's like, you can actually adjust these rings. Let's put these two together so you can just see how the two complement one another. So put this on here. First of all, I'll size this down. Actually, the exposure too. And you can see this halo situation. If I click on the halo, bring this up, and it can give you a little bit of moire if you're familiar with moire. When somebody wears very thin stripes on their shirt or anything like that, it kind of breaks up the image with the color, and it gives you like buzzing. Not necessarily something that you want, but it is inherent in some cameras. So you can use this. I'll just turn this off, and I think personally it gives you this like look of like dish soap. Like if you were to pour dish soap on top of your lens, right? Kind of gives you that, you know, before, like if you were making bubbles, you know, you'll see this different colors here. So if you wanted to apply that kind of texture, you don't have to have this on, but again, it's kind of like, gives you a little bit more grit and texture on your lens. And then right here, this is what, like I mentioned before, if you had grease on your lens, you can adjust this. You can make this a little bit bigger, more prominent, kind of like move exactly where it is, and then adjust the actual size of it and the exposure of it. Oh, I'm highlighting the wrong thing. There it is. So adjust this exposure, and then you can adjust the angle of it, and you can even like move the position of it as a whole, and then adjust the angle of that spike and just how much it spreads. So if I wanted to dial that back, so you can get some interesting results with that. And this chromicity right here that you see, this one right here, you can actually adjust just how many colors are in there, and it gives you like almost a rainbow full of colors, and that's kind of breaking things up and just giving you like imperfections, but like, you know, something that mocks up real life, because not every single lens is made exactly perfectly the same way. That's the beauty of some of these lenses, and people will pay more money to get older lenses that have these imperfections. So now you have a way to kind of make things imperfect right here on the screen using this lens simulator. So that's just kind of the anatomy of it. Let's take a little step back from that, and then let's go here to just jump into our presets here. So if I click on this preset, and now you can see like these are like stylized presets. Then here's the lens simulations. So based on some Canon lenses, Heliar, here's the Leica lenses, Nikon. You have a few of them here. The list will be growing. You know, you have, if you wanted to dial it in yourself, you know, feel free. You can actually, this is the next part that I was going to show you. So you can click on any of these elements here. All right, click on any of these elements, and now you have sliders. And whenever you see any blue text allows for you to adjust. So if this is in a fixed position, that's going to be grayed out or white. But if it's blue, you can adjust the coating, you can adjust the thickness, you can adjust the rear coating and the rear coating thickness. You have a lot that you can work with at every element of this lens. So, like I said, have fun dialing it in. You know, if this right here, if you have that extra time, like play around with this and try it out. There's so much you can get from just messing around with the coating, the thickness. And then if you go in here, this is your aperture. The best part about it, if you look and you just want to pay attention to the simple things, you're going to see this is my light source, right? Looks like the sun. There's the aperture symbol right there. And then in here, this is my film plane, AKA the sensor, right? And in here, I can pick, like if I knew this was shot with a full frame camera, I can pick a full frame 35 millimeter, give it a second to update, and then this will actually give you a look of a 35 millimeter. If I wanted it to look like an IMAX camera, that would be a whole different look. It actually flattens out. If you see my reflections here, they're very subtle. Let me just bring them up so you can see them. So changes that pattern every time I change the film plane. Takes a minute. There it is. So depending on what your sensor is or what you're mocking up, when you do click on that, then you're going to see a different result based on your film plane. So micro four thirds, Super 35, a lot of cameras, cinema cameras in the sub $10,000 range are Super 35 sensors. So you have that option here. Yes, you can dial this into whatever you want, but the presets do the math for you. Makes life a little bit easier. If you did have an Airy, right, Alexa or Alexa 65 or Dragon, 6K, you have these options in here. The list will grow, I'm sure. And besides that, let's just go down here to stylize or even core projections, right? Just a glow ball or even like a streak on the screen, right? An anamorphic streak. There are no mock-ups at this time of anamorphic lenses, but you can make what looks like an anamorphic streak across the screen, right? And then you also have, like, here's the glow ball, just a spiky glow ball, warm white, distant sun, and all these composite just straight over your footage. So you can just hop around here and just maybe even find this as a nice starting point, and then just adjust however you'd like. And then this button right here that says new will allow for you to either you can make a new category, right? And once I'll call this, today. And then this is Big Blue. Hit save. Now inside of here, it pops up. It's Big Blue. Put a star next to it if you like it, all right? And it just becomes it pops up in your favorites, all right? And you can see all of your custom folders at one time, or you can go into a specific folder and then things will live in Big Blue. Things will live in today. So you can categorize that. You can categorize it by client. You can categorize it by project, however you like. And then you can trade these off and you can have these presets. It's very similar to what you see in other Red Giant software. So let me just click here. And the one thing I want to note, and it says it inside of here, is your light source position is just a preview. So inside of the designer here, when I'm doing this, when I click confirm, that's not going to live in your After Effects comp in the exact same place. This just gives you a chance to kind of work with it, mold it to the way you want, and then you can place it wherever you want on the screen. So if I put it here and then I hit confirm, it's still going to live in the same place, but all the other adjustments outside of the position itself have already been adjusted inside of the designer. But if you want to do things outside of the designer, you can just go in here and pop this up, adjust the size, move things over. Click here, drag that slightly over, and then kind of pop it into the corner of the screen. Or you can keyframe this, or use it as a texture, use it to relight, or just kind of like even beyond below. Before like some text, you can have this nice glowing halo behind it, and you can give it some shimmer by using the noise evolution. So just drag that slider across and you'll see it slowly update. But these are all the subtleties. So let me just turn these on and I'll show you one by one. So if I go here, turn that off. And let's go here to flare reflections. So in the flare reflections, this is like just the tail, just all the little bits at the edge of the screen. So if you already shot into the sun and you just didn't get these flares, that happens. I'll show you one prime example. So if I click over here, so here I'm literally just doing a flare only. So if I turn off the background, it's just this flare right here, because I did have a nice sun light leak situation, right? So there's a nice light leak situation here, and then I just added that flare just for texture. And the beauty of it is it's not over your talent's face. It's not getting in the way. You can move it when needed. You can keyframe it and make it, if your shot moves, you can keyframe it, use an expression to keyframe it if you want to make a null object and kind of push it across the screen with a controller. But the idea is like I can use just the tail of that flare if I want. And then if I go back over here, here's another example. I'm just going to hop through a couple of these examples so I can show you some light leaks, and I might be able to preview some of the Magic Bullet suite. So in here we have just a subtle little light coming out of the corner here, and that's just a flare. Also, I applied this on an adjustment layer, and I apply this over a black solid. So you can use either one, and you'll see it's right there. It's very subtle, but it just adds a little bit of texture to it, especially if there's this like steam flowing through. So you can use it and apply it with different blend modes if you want. You don't have to just do screen. There's also, just to show you, in my render settings, there's an option here for video screen or HDR. All right, HDR meaning it just puts it in add mode, and the way that it blends with your footage, it's a little bit different and it makes things pop, and it might add a little bit of contrast and a little bit more dimension, and you'll be able to see. If you look at the difference actually with HDR or this in add mode, you can actually see the flare itself. You can see the reflections of the flare itself. And then when I switch this back to screen mode, just give it a moment for that blue bar to populate. You'll see that things changed a little bit. This gets a little bit more subtle, but it's just a difference of like, does it blend with your footage and does it pop a little bit more? So HDR mode, depending on the type of footage that you have, you can get some interesting results. And let me just go here.
This is your 5 minutes.
Sounds great. I'm ready. Okay, so let's just jump across. I'll show you another example here. And again, you don't have to use presets. Presets just get you to a good spot. So use the presets like a menu item. Let's hop over here to Premiere. And I'll just jump over here, and you'll see here are my controlled flares. Here's another set of flares. And then also, what I would recommend is maybe you grade your footage and you add it afterward, and you can either marry it with the color correction, or you can just do it independently, and that's where you can add a little bit of a blue or an orange tint to it, and you can just have fun with it. So, this one right here is independently of the actual like color grade. So another thing you can do, here's an example of if we track it. So you can take it, and here's a shot. When it loads, here's a shot of it actually tracking whenever it feels like loading. Let me just flip over to After Effects, and I'll show it to you in After Effects. Okay, there it is. So if I were, let me just bring this down to auto, see where it wants to be. I'm going to listen to what the computer says instead of vice versa. So now track from here, and you'll see as the camera moves, that flare will move with it, and you can change the flavor of that flare. It doesn't have to be so giant and prominent, but this kind of makes it look like you shot it with a particular lens, and it just adds a little bit of a texture. And you don't have to do the same exact thing. You can adjust this and kind of make something that's a little bit smaller and less prominent inside of your frame, but you can track this and just kind of like adjust the position to the track itself. So many different ways to use this. Again, just to break it down, you don't have to use every ounce of it. You can use just the starburst, just the glow and the halo, or just a general little flare on the screen if you like, and you can make it as subtle as you possibly want. You can take that brightness all the way down to where it's next to nothing, or even not the brightness itself, but even just the size of it. Just make it really wide and not so bright. And you can put this on different layers and adjust your your transfer mode. So just to hop back here in Premiere, there's another, and you can also use it in your motion graphics or any compositing. See, here's your like subtle texture motion to mock up the sun, sun rays. And this is a little bit stylized, but the idea is that it pokes through. It's in an HDR mode, so you get a little bit of a blend right there, and it just kind of gives you this subtle texture. So you don't have to use it for exactly what it says it is. You can use it for the texture, and you can use it to kind of just spin something on the screen and pretend it's some kind of a gobo, a shadow or a cookie, right? So there's another. Let me just show you overlight, which is one of my favorite effects. So if I click here, I'm gonna highlight these, and this is gonna bring us right to the tail end. So I'll keep it honest, and I'll go here to my effect controls, effects. They're in here. Okay, so I'll highlight this one. Here's my effect controls, universe light, turn it on and off, right? And then you can actually do really simple things like that side sparkle, or I can change this over to horizontal or vertical. But I would want to mock up where the actual light's coming from so it looks more like an actual light leak. And you can actually adjust the flicker as well and the hue, and I can change this and kind of make this more orange if I want to. And it's pretty subtle. So hue intensity. So if you're not ready to jump into the lens flare, overlight just adds some really nice texture. From the corners of the frame, you can see this little bit of spill on the clip. So turn that on, turn that off, and it just kind of like sets things up to where it's mocking up the sun. You get a little bit of light leak, and it gives you kind of a cinema camera look. So if you're doing this with a phone or something like that, and it even pumps up your image if you don't have specifically enough light and you want to just kind of blast your image with light. Like all these headlights are just blasting into your camera. So I think this takes me to the end here. And then I'll put this up on the screen. Oh, I don't think, what's that? There you go, that's my card. Not really, here's my real card. So, but if you do like Midjourney, it's amazing. But I'm not a Midjourney artist. I just type words in. I'm a video artist.
Great stuff, Tony. That's really interesting about how you're adding value to the shots, even if they weren't quite capturing that on set or out in the open, because you can't control the environment. Or especially in a documentary, because you don't have the luxury of time to set up those shots and position them, because your subject is
another good
on the
example.
Move, I imagine.
Another good example, since you mentioned that, if you're doing a promo for something that's a little bit more fixed, and it's a TV show, and you can't do all these flares, but you have to do some promo that's 15 seconds, and you want to make it look great. When you have these show rips, then you take it back, you repurpose it, then you add the light, then you add the texture, then you add the lens flares. So you take something that may look just very general and very simple, and now you're adding dimension by adding light flares and adding light leaks.
All the things that would get you fired as a cinematographer 100 years ago.
Absolutely. The things that people love now.
But these are the things that ground it in reality, and then take people into the story, or take them out of the story, I should say, doing the opposite of that. And it's interesting about the, you can also, because you're doing this in Premiere, you can embed those in a MoGut as well, so you can give them to the editorial team.
Yes, and you can, when you do that, you're really kind of controlling how much they can author your effect. Maybe they can just spin it or size it up and down. That's it.
And another thing was interesting in there is the presets you were talking about for the real-world lenses. And fun fact, so they're part of the development at Maxon. We have this amazing artist, Dr. Sassy, who has got this massive collection of lenses, and he worked with a production team to make sure that these were technically accurate. So those things you were talking about, if you knew that you want to replicate that particular lens, these are the sort of lights or the flares elements that you will get from it.
Indeed. Email Dr. Sassy and ask him to make you some mock-ups of lenses.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Cool. And also, there were a couple of questions on the chat about can you track the flare?
Yes,
And
I did one example of it, but you can indeed track the 2D position, do your take the tracking data, and then do a pick whip to your tracking position. To your 2D position.
Yeah.
You can track it across if you want to, yeah.
Absolutely. And also, as mentioned in the chat, that there's a slight overlap with Null Light Factory, where you can actually track the location of it, but the Null Light Factory elements aren't technically as accurate as these ones.
The major difference is those are based on sprites. These are based on, this is lens simulation, so these are procedural elements. So you will get a little bit more dimension out of these. These are based on real lenses. Null Light Factory has been around for quite some time. So they're two separate products. There is overlap, but use them independently and see what you come up with.
So the difference is that the sprites won't change over time, but the elements in real lens flares will change as you animate the lens point, won't they?
Indeed. And I love how you answer the question, because I didn't. So it's perfect.
Just a prompt.
Yes.
So, this is available on M1. So
yes, so if you have an M1 Mac like myself and you want to get an M1 Ultra or whatever you want to get, the lens flare effect can be a little heavy at times. So if you do have an M1, it's optimized for the M1. On the PC side, I think you can just kind of go to town and build your own PC.
Yeah.
If you have a Threadripper at home, that's, yay tall, I think you'll be just fine. So,
because you use your main machine is an M1 Studio, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you just chuck in a backpack and then you're off.
Exactly. It's my new, really expensive, not really easy to use laptop. Bring it to the coffee shop.
Excellent stuff. So, Tony, you're also doing more content with us because next Monday you're doing another session of
Indeed.
the demystifying webinars that we do every Monday. So what are you covering on Monday?
On Monday, we're covering what it is inside of the edit. We've been covering the planning, the shooting. We're breaking down a whole project that we shot for Maxon and the idea of where the story comes out. It's not just in the planning, it's not just in the shooting and the intent in which you can actually drag out of it and use it as, you want to use it as it's like your yield, and you get as many puzzle pieces as you can. So we're going to have fun inside of the edit on Monday, and then on Thursday, Maxon color.
Absolutely. So if you don't know about these and you haven't seen the ones in this series already, you can go to the Maxon Training Team on YouTube and you can watch those recordings. Yay, Maxon Training Team. And also, I'm sure that the team are going to put that link into the chat, and also you can could you put the link into that chat for registering for the live webinar on Monday. And the fun thing is, if you come to the live webinar, you can ask questions and then we'll answer them live. So
live.
That's the whole point. Just like today.
Don't go to the recording and ask questions.
Yeah. Well, we answer those as well.
We do.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
It's better to do it live.
So fantastic. Thanks so much, Tony, for generously sharing your knowledge for these things. We really appreciate it. And also stick around because we got Eric Say up next, who is going to be, you don't want to miss that. He's going to show you some nice things in cinema. So thank you again, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes.
All right.